Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to uLaw CPD webinar. Topic for today's session is Get Ready for Law Society Audit. This session is entitled for 1 hour of professionalism CPD credits. And I'd like to thank everyone joining in today and also apologize for, not being able to conduct this webinar last week due to some technical issues. The platform that we host this on had some problem and we were not able to, resolve it on time. I'm glad this is back and working now. So for everyone who's joined in today, thank you so much for being here. As we have more people joining in, you would probably hear some beep noises. I request you to probably give it a minute or two for people to settle in so we could start with the agenda at the meantime. Looking into agenda for today's session, as you can see, law society audits are, of various types. There could be spot audits, there could be practice review audits, there could be, more like a technology audit or a financial review audit. There are different types of audit, but basically, or rather in common, we see that people are mostly audited for a practice review or a financial review, which is where, in spot audit as well, we have people being reviewed for both of these cases. Like practice review includes understanding what is the methodology that you're adopting in your practice. How do you have retainer letters in place? Do you do conflict checks? Do you do virtual intakes? Are you virtually verifying your client's information? There are several things that needs to be adhered to based on the procedure, based on the methods, based on the record keeping. So practice review involves everything, but at various stages. Now, the practice review need not just be at the stage where they would like to view the accounting. They could go way back to when you are intaking a client and they would like to see your client intake process. They would like to see your matter management process, how well you're servicing your clients. Are you providing them with the necessary documents, like, whether you're providing them with the invoice on time before transferring money from your trust account, whether you're generating Form 9As after you transfer especially if you're in Ontario and you transfer money from trust account to the general account, whether you're doing the Form 9. So the different documents, different records that one needs to be, generating at the time they would do the practice management or use the practice management. It may not necessarily be only if you're using a practice management. There are some people who don't use a software. They still manage their record keeping and documents, but it's a hassle. You have to do stuff manually. You have to print out things from online. You have to fill them out. Whereas the difference, obviously, when you're using a practice management and the legal accounting solutions, it's basically audit ready. If you are doing your due diligence, if you're following the key steps, if you're following the data entry and the methods that you're using to adapt to the technology and whatnot. So everything that you're doing end to end, but at the same time you're logging each and every record, and you're able to later download them and review it for your purpose. That's what it takes to do the financial review as well over here. Similarly, for technology review and backup procedures that you see here, you would see most of them being able to manage the mobile devices, or they have a system in place. What if their practice management is not working? If there is some problem, what do they end up doing? They would have records in their server, they would have records in their drives, they would have record in their system, wherever, right? There's always a backup, there's always several devices that you would log on to and make sure that you're able to review at any time. Sorry, I have someone reaching out. Link to login, please. Sure. Sorry, just give me 1 minute. Let me share the details. Okay. Slash uLawPractice. This is where you need to type it on the browser, and you can just give your name and say join. You could also join using the phone for the audio. And here is the detail, the local number. Thank you. Glad you asked. I hope I'm audible enough for people who are here. Um, just a small suggestion. If you're here, you're using the computer audio and you find my voice, crackling, or for some reason you're not able to hear me well, I would highly recommend use the phone audio because phone audio has better quality. So please, if any for the ones who are using phone audio, can you maybe put a text saying that if it's working well for you and if I'm audible enough. And if you're on computer audio, I would highly recommend you to switch to the phone audio as well. All right. So that was a bit about the agenda for today's session. Diving into what is audit process? Why are we panicking when we hear the word audit? The good thing is I always say audit is good because it's definitely going to give a clarity to you as well as the person auditing your firm. Gives a better understanding of where you stand, of how good your firm is doing. So audit is not bad. Audit is good. Audit helps you to understand the outcomes are basically just to understand whether you're doing good job, whether you're maintaining the records, whether you need to do anything more or everything is great. Someone has to do the job, so that's why we have Law Society doing it for us. Or you sometimes have financial review, which is sometimes from CRA for the tax review audits. There are different things that when it means audit. But what is audit exactly? What is the purpose? So audit supports and promotes high quality law firm record keeping. So especially record keeping is nothing but a result of maintaining books, maintaining the processes, managing them, and ensuring at every step you're following the guidelines that's provided by various institutions, keeping all the requirements in mind and all the compliances in mind, making sure of every single step being covered and adhered to by the Law Society requirements. And when you are being audited, the very first thing that the auditor would like to see is to ensure that everything of the sort is in place. And definitely, many of you might have this question in mind. Why me? Why? It's not just you. It could be, you might think it's just you, but there'd be several other firms being audited at the same time. But trust me, if you're someone new to this practice, so it's kind of unsaid. It's also probably said somewhere, but I came across this when I was talking to a law society auditor myself, where they mentioned when a firm is being newly opened or when a practice is newly started, roughly between 18 to 24 months, somewhere between your first, rather I would put it as 12 to 24 months, somewhere between your first annual report filing to the second, that there are high chances you would get audited. So there's a practice review audit somewhere between your 18 to 20 months or something of that sort. It's not mandatory, but it's somewhere in the practice that, we see people being audited in their first 18 to 20 months. And this is designed so proactive compliance measurements are being followed. And the spot audits are basically going to show the integrity of the law firm, whether they are filing everything necessary into the respective folders, into the respective files. The record keeping is up to date, complete. See, I could still go on about asking some of the clients of mine that, hey, I see these documents generated, but sometimes they're incomplete. Sometimes you see them not carry the information that it has to have, right? So, so this is when people have, um, you know, a little bit of question whether am I doing the right thing, whether I'm doing the correct thing. So this is when software plays a role in helping them to understand what are the documents that needs to be generated, what are the uh, rather more than what documents needs to be generated. For the documents to be complete and for the documents to be carrying complete information, software helps you to enter those into the respective fields, which gets pulled into the reports and later into the records where you're generating as your bookkeeping stuff. There are people who have their records generated, sometimes complete, great. The auditor is loving it and praising it, and their entire review becomes easier because you print journals, you print ledgers, you print receipts, you print your Form 9As, you print your reconciliation statements, you print your invoices on time, and it has your signatures, it has all the details. Every single line item is present. Now I can still skip. I can skip my payout details. I can skip the recipient details. I can skip the reference numbers sometimes. The method of payments. In fact, I would have paid using credit card, but there would be check over there because that's one of the top options available. And sometimes on the go, in the rush, we would just do that. But people need to understand that just having the software is not going to help them pass the audit. Now, that's why I'm here to tell you, if you have the software, you still need to do the due diligence of handling the data entry, handling a complete data entry system, not an incomplete still. So, number one, enter the data. Number two, enter the complete data. Number three, you would have the records completed on time every month into the respective folders, which would help you to be audit ready at any point. Because what if it's a practice review and it's a spot audit and financial review and spot audit and you're going to be audited at the spot? Like you have no time to sometimes generate these documents, right? So you do it then and there. You do it as and when you go through the months, as and when you go through the days, sometimes in the weeks, sometimes in the weekends, as and when you would rather have an entry. I would highly recommend people to complete the transaction with the record keeping, and that would help them to be audit ready at any given standpoint, right? So definitely practice review. Now to understand uh, what are you being audited for? What is it that I need to be ready for, right? Rather you, in this case, need to be ready for. As a firm, you need to make sure that every single client that you're handling, you have all their records in place, their respective files and folders, their letters, the retainer letters, their client intake forms, their virtual verifications. If you're virtually completed their intake, their receipts, and everything that you need from scratch is being filed, is being properly managed. Okay. I have someone saying volume doesn't work. That's giving me a little bit of heart attack. Let me quickly check. If one of you can let me know volume if I'm audible. So I can see many of you over there. If one of you could let me know, because we're already 17 minutes into the webinar. I hope I was audible all this time. Hello? Hi. I hope I'm audible. Viewer 11, you were initially conversing. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for confirming. Great. Okay, let me continue with that. So I was talking about different types of audit representations where one needs to make sure that these are some of the types of audits and what you're being audited for and what needs to be prepared. So let's say, especially with practice review, they would like to see if you're properly managing the clients, the folders, the files, the reports, including client intake, retainer letters, receipts, invoices, the ledgers, journals, especially sometimes they would pick randomly, give me these 5 clients as ledgers and journals, and all of them are readily available for you. But sometimes it's good to progress as you, good to download them as you progress with the file, and have them ready. So anytime you're pulled into an audit, you have them ready to hand over. And similarly, financial review is mostly for trust and general accounts, therefore financial bookkeeping guidelines based on it, whether you're downloading the reports, whether you're maintaining them, whether you're reconciling your banks at par that month with the respective bank accounts, and making sure, again, all the reports are generated from time to time. Similar to that is the technology review. Over here, it is basically the firm having proper safety guards, ensuring that the technology is maintained with high, the guidelines, all the safety guidelines being measured and followed. Backups are being maintained, firewalls are being maintained, ensure that all of them are in place for the technology review. And when it comes to professional and time management review, I've seen the first two myself, but the last two I have not come across, but maybe some people have. The professional and time management, definitely, this is exactly where people get caught, or rather get into trouble for not completing sometimes their CPD hours, their membership licenses not renewed. There's so many other things in alignment with the professional conduct guidelines that's being put out for the lawyers and paralegals. So if you're someone who is not aware of various types of audits, this is definitely going to be helpful for you to understand that not just reconciling your books is enough, but there are things way more than that you're being audited for sometimes. Now on to how to prepare for an audit. Let's assume you have a software, in this case, something like uLaw, and or rather you are using uLaw. Let's assume that you have several files, lines, information in it, and from day to day you are raising invoices, you're adding trust amounts, which is retainers, you're transferring funds from trust to the general. For every single time, let's say you do an electronic fund transfer, you're generating Form 9A. So it's different set of procedures for different things. But let's put it this way, to ensure that you're being audit ready, it is to ensure that you have printed out all of these documents, practice procedure on a regular basis, sometimes monthly, sometimes quarterly, some requires daily, some requires yearly. So based on the practice requirements or practice procedures that needs to be maintained, as well as the financial statements. Whether it's monthly, quarterly, yearly review, you would need to start. It's not just, um, one day thing, but you obviously practice on a regular basis, on a daily basis. And for someone who doesn't have that time, you would have to find the time, or you'd have to find the right resources, get the help, but make sure that you're audit ready at any given point of time. And maintain a little checklist, especially if you're on a matter under the compliance tab. You would find something called as a checklist that would provide you saying, have you done your conflict screening? Have you generated the retainer letter? Have you generated these journals, ledgers, statements, settlement statements, whatnot? So there's checklists for each and everything. Sometimes there's weekly checklists, sometimes there's monthly, quarterly, yearly. According to me, someone who wants to be audit ready at any given point has to have definitely starting off with a weekly checklist. If not daily, is too ambitious. You should be able to do your expenses and income on a weekly basis. That would lead you to do your monthly reconciliations super simple. So you're able to generate the monthly ledgers, journals, reconciliation statements. And end of the day, your quarterly becomes easier. So you have your taxes managed, your client communications, especially if you have a client file ongoing for more than a quarter, you're required to provide them with some of the statements that's readily available under the matter compliance tab in uLaw called as settlement statements, statement of activities, and more. And again, all of this makes your year-end super simple. All that you're required to do is generate documents and not sit and break your head for what needs to be done, what is the bank error, how do I fix it, and then talk to your assistant or talk to your accountant and try to get time from the Law Society or the CRA. None of this is needed if someone who's following all of this on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, their annual filing, whether it is to the Law Society for their annual report or to the CRA for their annual taxes. Both becomes easier. So your year end is definitely going to also make you look at things, in a way where you can compare your previous year's reports and understand how everything goes. Well, as part of the practice management checklist, one of the major things that I always tell people to do is create a checklist based on their practice needs. Somebody might need a retainer letter, but your practice might not require retainer because maybe you don't have a trust account or you don't need a trust account. But at the same time, you would have your general account, you should have made sure that you raise invoices, then collect the payments and not ahead into the general accounts. Similarly, you have your expenses cleared and all of it in one place. So for someone who's doing their matter management internal procedures, make sure to have good file naming system. You have a unique file naming system. If you're someone who uses uLaw, we have automated file naming system, it has unique file numbering system. Each and every matter, even though it's the same client, sometimes for two clients you will have for one same client, you'll have two matters or multiple matters. In that case, every matter, every file is treated separate. They have unique file numbers, even though it's the same client. So you understand how the file works, what is the amount that each and every client provides you with and all. And or these files are organized and all the dockets are entered, and you have retainer letters filed, and you have retainers entered, retainer receipts provided. You have a copy of them as well, and make sure that you have the matter status updated from time to time. Dockets are entered, invoices are raised, transfers are done, Form 9Es are done if you're in Ontario, especially if you've done electronic fund transfers. And if you're maintaining the matter status active, closed, archived, why? It's easy for you to act upon a specific file. Let's say you're looking for closed files, you can pull out based on the category and filter them out as closed files. And similarly, if you're handling all the dockets, whether which style of billing you're adapting for, like, based on whether your retainer letter says flat rate, if you bill them on flat rate, if it says billable time, you're doing billable time, and you're handling all the dockets and disbursements separate. You're not combining them because the dockets are legal fees that adds to your revenue, whereas disbursements are recovery of expenses, and it shows as a separate line item. Even though it goes into your P&L, it shows as a separate line item as recovery of expenses, and it's not considered for your taxes because you have your income and expense offset against each. Only the profit or only the profit margin that you've made, if you have anything, that's considered. So the appropriate reports are made. So it's always recommended to enter your dockets and disbursements separately. Okay. Besides that, every time you pass through a file, you're completing it. Other than just marking them as complete or archiving it, it is good to also download the statement of closures. You have, let's say you have a proper closure done every time so you can keep the closure letter on the file, also give it to the client. So you have the status of closing as on a specific date, and you could show that to the auditor in case required. And, just then, just leaving it open or leaving it without any closure, proper closure, and capturing all the bill of cost and revenue items as part of the trust in general as well. You have all of these ledgers and journals specific to client as well as one in common for that month or that quarter or that year. You could generate based on the required date ranges. Now, other than just capturing your legal fees, disbursements. Let's say you're someone who has trust accounts, you work with trust account, keeping in mind, these have the retainers fee paid in advance to someone, especially if you have a trust account, they're paid in advance and you have them in order to secure or keep their services required. So people don't want to miss out. So they make sure that everything is compared to it. What should it have? All the nature, scope, every client's, every uh, legal professional's needs are different when it comes to a retainer letter. So we recommend you to make a retainer letter, keeping in mind what works for your practice, what works for your business. Some of the points that we recommend is to make sure that you have the scope of the matter, the nature, your obligations, clients' obligations, the method of communication, how frequent you would like to communicate, what are your, fee and retainer arrangements? Are you looking to get a lump sum amount, or are you looking to make some, like 2, 3 payments? It's better to mention them all at once in the retainer letter with all the termination clauses and other uses with the technology and risks associated with it. So if you are a uLaw user, you would find this retainer letter in there. Similarly, when it comes to financial management checks, um, it, it it's basically a process that is repeated for every client, every matter. So you adopt a style, you follow a style. Let's say you are someone who follows a flat rate billing, or you're someone who follows a billable time, you're someone who collects retainer, or you are someone who bills the client and collect into the general account, or you're someone who works on contingency fee, or you're a real estate lawyer who works based on the deposits into the trust and then disbursements later. Whatever is your method, you would choose that, you would follow that consistently, unless you have different area of practices and you follow a method for each. Let's put it this way: for a financial management checklist, you have to make sure of raising an invoice prior to collecting funds. That could be either into general or moving the funds from trust to the general. Retainers are collected ahead of raising invoices, which is still okay. But are the taxes recorded? Are the billable time or flat rate recorded? If it's billable time, the time that you're billing for and the time that's taken has to be equal, or the time that's billed has to be lesser than the time that's taken. Sometimes people bill more than the time taken, but you have to be able to justify to them. That's why there's something called as time taken and time billed. So if a client has any concerns about the fees, making sure that you have all the procedures set up to address it and you've recorded them onto your books and into the reports. So especially if you're being audited, you have all of them handy to, provide details with. Now, on the other hand, once the invoice is raised, you can see the invoice balance. You know whether the client has to provide you with it, or if the money is lying in the trust as a retainer, you can move that along too. and see how much of the balance needs to be paid after the retainer is transferred from trust to e-general. Getting paid from trust, sometimes people would make it as a trust transfer, or some people would write a check, and it depends whichever is the process that you're adopting for. Sometimes people do not get money into the trust, so which means they don't have any retainer. So they would raise an invoice, the invoice balance is shown as an outstanding, and later that is received into the general account from the client. So with getting paid into the general, you can ensure that you're receiving amounts into the general account less than the invoice or equal amount to the invoice. Most of the times I've seen people, um, missing out on this because they wouldn't know. So it's important for you to know that uh, you would not be able to receive higher value than the invoiced amount into your general account. So in uLaw, if you actually see, we would restrict you to the amount of the invoice. We don't allow you to enter anything more. So you can enter either lesser amount or the equal amount, but not even a cent more. And in regards to a financial management checklist, continuation of what you should be doing when it comes to trust and general accounts. As I already mentioned, it is important that sometimes we see auditors asking for Form 9As or trust ledgers, journals, fee books, expense book. When it comes to trust, we need the ledgers and the journals. There are disbursements made from the trust, so you would see them under the trust payment journals. You would see them under the client trust ledgers. You would see trust comparisons, which is nothing but the reconciliation statements also comes up with that, trust comparisons. You see Form 9As. And in terms of taxes, if you are HST, GST, PST registered, you would be able to do them quarterly reports being generated, even though they're not part of your audits. But yes, sometimes you are reviewed for your tax audits, and you can be asked for the payment receipts if they're if they're entitled for the HST. Also, the other thing is as part of the general account, office expenses, if you run payroll, if you're paying those to the CRA, and if that's being recorded as part of your books, as part of the general, even that matters, that's also part of it. Other than that, as part of the client updates, um, every now and then, providing your client as you progress with the file, providing them with invoices, receipts, uh, and at the very beginning, giving them their retainer letters, collecting their ID proofs, and verifying their IDs. If you're virtually verifying, following the virtual verification process, and if you are someone who's working on a file for more than a quarter, we already discussed about providing statement of activities, settlement statements, bill of cost, ensuring the client is pretty aware of all the happenings in the file, and you're able to have a standard procedure for maintaining the monthly, quarterly data verbally when you meet them or on the phone, and also sending the documents over their emails or printouts, keeping a copy of the folders, ensuring that you've also provided them with a copy, have like a little confirmation from them and file them. So it's important to show that you have shared everything necessary with the client and have the matter closure procedure done that we've already discussed, giving them a statement, marking the file as closed, ensures that the client is satisfied, give them a proper closure, that makes them feel good, making them willing to come back. But a matter closure letter is very appropriate for the file closing process. So it is reviewed and ensuring that it's provided. Now, just to put you with this, all of this that we've discussed now as part of the practice management, recording the event as and when it happens, or the financial records are available. Now, all of these are about definitely compliances, and maintaining the system helps you track your business or the numbers, and helps you save time. All of this are definitely available for you as part of the program, but are you using it is my question. If you are using it, great. If you're not using it, I would highly recommend you to put the program to complete use. As you all know, that uLawPractice focuses mainly on compliances, which is going to be helpful for you. Document management and compliances, that being said, could be law society. Any law society, we have their respective compliance system in the system, and you would be able to download, let's say, compliance for the client intake process, whether it's a conflict check, one download, you're able to get the statement. It could be source of contact. Now, if you're not mentioning the source of contact, you will have to ensure that it is done, and then you would ensure to download the source of contact by clicking on compliance, source of contact. Let's say you did it for all, or you do it for weekly, and download them, and you have them in the respective folder. So you have your conflict checks. So at every stage, you have your compliance management taken care in the software, but ensuring to adhere to and following it and making sure that you have them downloaded into your respective folders is important. Similarly, when you go into the file, if the file is, see, I have marked this as closed, or once I'm done, I brought my balances to zero, I ensure there's nothing in the trust. I'm marking it as, closed. Nothing in the general, everything is done. I've provided everything that the client needs. It's done. So prior to that, I will ensure that the compliance tab, everything is taken care upon opening a file. I've completed the client intake, ID verification, conflict screening, downloading a retainer letter, sending the letter to the client asking for a 500 or 1,000 or 2,000, whatever is your retainer agreement fee that you'd like to implement, you could do that and ask your client to pay you into the trust account. Once that's there, so see, the retainer letter that we have in uLaw is going to be in lines with what Law Society recommends you to, have on the document. So you're describing the service, the nature and scope is completed, the fees, how would you like to charge them, the arrangements, and the termination clause, everything that end-to-end is covered, and you could just try downloading it and signing it, keeping in your file. It starts with definitely the client intake. If you're someone who's also working on a client's file for more than a quarter, these are the quarterly statements. Okay. As part of the statement of activity, you get to let them know that this was the hours, and if there's anything more that they need to know. Sometimes the statements are available as part of Trust Plus General. You can download these ledgers too. Sometimes the auditors might ask client specifics, then you can go into the matter and download this. Sometimes they might ask you in general for the month or for a period that you're audited for. Let's say you're audited for the previous quarter or you're audited for this entire year. You could download it for this last 6 months. It will show you everything that is needed. I also like to show this as part of the trust ledgers. We could see the client's particulars. You can see very clearly the reference numbers of a transaction. the receipts, then payouts. How did you pay out? What was the reason? This was for court fee. You can also very clearly see what is the disbursement, whether it was trust payout or a trust transfer. Sometimes they would like to see whether you've done the right thing of paying out of trust or transferring from trust to the general and then paying from the general. Some of the expenses are to be done from the general. And moving on to one of the most important things as part of other documents is fee book. They'd like to see a specific date range to see if you've raised all of those for the month or for the year. If your fee book as part of the general account transactions, if the legal fees raised and you've transferred the funds. So we get to see the legal fee with the invoice information, the invoice numbers noted here. So the series 313233, and as part of 31, this was the disbursement in 31, disbursement in 33, right? And all of the details with taxes, without taxes. When you go back, as part of the trust in general, we have the reconciliation documents as well here. So for someone who adds the information on a regular basis, it should be easier for them to reconcile their books. So keeping in mind weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual requirements, this is part of the monthly requirements. Someone has trust account, it's required. The requirement is to complete the trust reconciliations for the month end by the following month, before 25th of the month. So let's say by 25th of July, you're required to complete reconciliations for 30th of June. That will allow you to complete your Trust reconciliation, similarly, general and credit card. Even though general and credit card is not termed as mandatory as the trust is, but it's important for you to make a note here. And as part of the accounts, we also have other compliances, and for other provinces that raise the year-end compliance, we have the year-end compliance as well set out here. And lastly, not just for the reason of audit and compliance, but also beyond that to complete the health of your firm, to understand the financial health of your firm. Most of the time, it's good to download these reports like balance sheet, trial balance, P&L to check where you are and how you're doing things, and whether there's something that you need to report or understand and more. Okay. I'd like to make a quick pause here. As you all can see, all the reports are available under the compliance tab to make sure that you're audit ready at any given point of time. But one thing that I would highly recommend before downloading these reports are to ensure that they're filled out completely, that all the fields that require information are entered here, the check numbers or the reference numbers and all. And accounts has very similar thing. When you're adding expenses or when you're importing expenses, it is important for you to make sure to put them under the respective line items and add all the necessary information, invoice numbers if you're provided with invoices, the payments, and their method of payments, reference numbers, all of it. So now with AI features that we also have where you can, press hold and talk, so you can even make things easier as to what you want to fill. You don't have time to type, or you don't have to import using bank statement. You don't like to connect, scan the receipt, choose the file, and just put them in, and uLaw will automatically record the expenses. For someone who doesn't like to connect their bank or who doesn't want to connect their bank, this is easier to. All right. So that brings us to the end of this webinar. If you have any questions, I request you to please let me know on the chat window. I will be sharing the attendance link for today's session along with the topic information. Please do make a note. So the topic for today's session is Get Ready for Law Society Audit. You could use this title and claim your 1-hour credits, as well as please provide us with the attendance at your end, so it will be easier for us to confirm in case it's needed. Thank you so much once again, everyone, for joining today's webinar. I'm also posting a few different links for you to make a note of. If you have time, I request you to go through our social media pages for regular updates. Please follow us, our YouTube channel for guided support videos, and there are many other things published on our blogs, in Twitter. You get to follow us and benefit from all the channels. Please do sign up at your convenience. And once again, thank you everyone for joining today. And I look forward to talking to all of you in the next webinar with a new topic. Thank you so much and have a good day.